Cameras and phones are the most commonly used device within the park, constituting a sculpture foundation, recreational areas, well-carved horticulture and monuments. Tourists and families are a common sight using their device to capture the moments. What's interesting is people's usage of the instruments and their interactions with the environments. Mobile phones are the most popular used device, and most users tend to spend less time considering the positioning of the image and focus more on capturing, in contrast to users of cameras who spend more time in certain positions, which are considered to have more details. People would usually tend to include model statues and stand in front of the closest one. Also during the daytime, users tend to take pictures of the fountain facing the trees and pathway than in the shade due to sunlight.
Deja vu, I've just been in this place before. Higher on the street, and I know it's my time to go. Going new, and the search is a mystery.
The behavior of users is generally affected by design and situational factors within the area. Generally, the two most used paths are the ones closer to St. James Station, adjacent to a cafe, and the one leading to Art Gallery Road. The high pedestrian usage represents their utility in the environment. Those coming to Hyde Park will most likely use St. James Station and its closest path, and leave using the same path since it leads to Sydney CBD and also possess a fairly busy cafe, and those using Art Gallery Road often either arriving from or going to surrounding areas such as Art Gallery Road, St. Mary Cathedral, or even the Wharf. A particular walking pattern was observed from people around the fountain. Based on the position of St. James Station, the fountain was used as a roundabout for human traffic into other paths, and people often use the left side of the path to walk, showing people's subconscious habit to use the left side since it imitates traffic conditions and practices in Australia. It is found that people would tend to congregate at iconic locations within the premise, yet comparing to other zones within Hyde Park such as the Anzac Memorial, human density was much higher at the fountain. This could reflect human nature to gather at more bright and green spaces with relaxed atmospheres, as compared to the War Memorial, which had less people, dull concrete, and possessed a more sombre atmosphere. Environment-wise, it consists of a relatively large amount of grassland and additional items. People sitting on benches were mostly with companions, resting, and technology usage was particularly lower than those walking across and was more prone to relaxation in similarity to those using the grass lawn. It is also a spot for the homeless people as it provided the facilities for living. Surprisingly, users tend to stare at devices less while walking through the park and tend to look around the environment more when consisting of a well-designed landscape, seemingly representing the possibility where, although there is a modern culture for people to stare predominantly at their digital devices, but given the correct environment, people would still potentially leave their device. The types of people or groups who use the premise are diverse. These include families, travelers, tourist groups, young couples, friends in groups, street performers, photographers, cyclists, and so on. This shows that people tend to use recreational spaces more during the weekend compared to the weekdays. Upon the recent collection of data from Facebook and Twitter, there are several topics worth discussion in Hyde Park. Often travelers from both domestic and international would tweet or link Hyde Park to other social media platforms including Instagram and YouTube, showcasing the images of the iconic sections, particularly the fountain and the War Memorial. This reinforces the fact that the two remain the most predominant attractions of Hyde Park, and where the majority of users tend to gather. It is seen on Facebook, many users, including the City Council, tend to take pictures of the fountain facing the trees, given the notion where the common preference displays a level of aesthetics. It was also found that the War Memorial was going through refurbishment, and tweets by the media which often show time lapses of the construction progress, and conducted interviews with officials showing their remembrance and respect of historical landmarks by renewing. This meant that well-known public spaces are maintained to attract more usage, tourism, and viewership. This effect also brings many positive side effects as well. Due to a well-designed and managed landscape, many users use the precinct for recreational purposes and profit. Due to users posting about their activities in Hyde Park such as walking and exploring, it would appeal to the wider audience and attract precinct usage, bringing attention to the less known part of Hyde Park. Utilizing high pedestrian traffic, many eateries of appealing stores and restaurants would appear. For example, on Twitter, there were posts regarding nearby eateries, cafes, and their food. Not only does this attract people to the park, but also assist the local economy. Since it is a public space, it remains a popular spot for social gatherings and protesting zones. Recent posts regarding Fraser Anning's speech on South Africa's maiden speech and accompanying alt-right groups have emerged commenting on the post and have asked for attendance for a rally at Hyde Park 2018 and listening to segments of Anning's speech. Posts regarding the LGBTIQA+ and Wear It Purple Day with the New South Wales Police Force, promoting and supporting LGBT rights in Hyde Park. The whole Hyde Park district has been used during 11 AM to 3 PM for Wear It Purple Day to allow the LGBT community to connect together, creating awareness for young members who want to express themselves freely. Another post was regarding a performance from Castellers de Sydney, where performers will construct a human tower in Hyde Park. Concluding, the precinct's image and usage are place referred for social gatherings. Therefore, in agreement to the reading Social Life of Small Urban Spaces by William H. White in 1980, these observations and collected data can represent the public discourse to reflect and how spaces are used which affect social behavior and purpose. It can be agreed that the majority of users of public parks and plazas are young people, high percentage of couples and proportionally high ratio of women compared to men. This demographic data, as both observed from images and physical observation of Hyde Park and research done in New York plazas, did create many economy communities within its local vicinity and new social trends. What this meant was food stores and amenities would be more likely to situate themselves along high pedestrian areas to attract business, creating so-called golden areas, and people's behavior, such as gathering. It was stated by White that certain locations became rendezvous points for groups. In his example of photographer and fountain and youngsters gathering in specific points was true, particularly for the fountain. White stated that the plaza would become empty after the main group has left. Taking tourist groups on a Saturday morning to afternoon, for example, when a group arrives, the park feels more dense and populated, rather than normal situations, which the park felt more empty although there were still pockets of people. Another topic he discussed was the notion of self-congestion, an inherent social pattern. Using the same method, a time-lapse was taken to assess, and unsurprisingly, people moved following the same pattern as the mainstream and engaged in traveling conversations. This can be seen in the respective previous images outlining the positioning and movement of people. Yet unlike White's observations in the 1980s in Chicago or New York, making observations about the interactions between people in particular, where men would observe and look at women, or where there would be active conversation between strangers and friends, with the precincts merely acting as a gathering spot. The invention and phenomena of mobile devices and the internet has developed into a case where both men and women would be more engrossed in their phones rather than what White discussed. It is not the fact that men have lost interest, it's just simply more interesting things to look at on their devices, while still following the invisible social cues. Hence, in public zones, it is true that the fundamental common sense is still followed within a park, but changing technology and social trends such as phones would alter people's behaviors, such as constant phone usage, yet seemingly only true when there is an obvious absence of interesting things around.